The fairy tale type of true love is nonsense. Too many people are chasing that fairy tale, which is why so many of them get divorced, because then when they're like, wait, you're supposed to be like this, like I imagine. I think that there is love that is true and there's love that is not true. Is
Right.
that
Yeah.
so? What would this not true love be? It would be infatuation, obsession.
I don't think it's like a fairy tale or Cinderella or, you
Right.
know, Enchanted where it's a
Right.
true love kiss.
Yeah.
Like, I don't believe in that, but I do think that, like, you can have somebody that you're so compatible with that it becomes like a true love.
True love is having that good, wise understanding of that reality.
You know, there's some states that are very anti-marriage, and there's states that are more for marriage. Like, I think Texas is a state that's really for marriage. Whereas you might go to New York or California and it's more anti, like people aren't getting married. I think what people need to know is what steps should you be taking in a dating relationship and what questions should you be asking in that dating relationship. Have you talked about finances?
Yep.
Like how you manage your finances, how do they manage their finances? If y'all were to get married, how you would manage finances
Yep.
together. For example, person A has $50,000 in debt and person B doesn't have any.
Don't go into debt. The borrower is slave to the lender. Don't sell yourself into slavery. Every time that you borrow anything, you have just made yourself a slave to the person that loaned you the money. I guarantee you, everybody that's listening to this, if you're afraid to talk about money with the person you're about to marry, you are not ready to get married.
Right.
If you cannot talk about everything about finances and they tell you everything about their finances, what they have, what their desires are to have, what their plan is on how to get there, how they plan to handle money with you. If you haven't had that conversation, you are not ready to get married. Do not. Because when do you want to find out that you don't agree about money? Before you get married or after you get married? So this one is there a time in your life that you learned a valuable lesson from? And this woman learned something from her divorce. So let's see.
Okay.
Getting divorced was a big lesson.
Okay.
Yeah.
How come? What happened?
For a long time, you know, like in your 20s and 30s, like getting married was a big goal, and I got married. And then I realized that that's not everything. And what I learned through being married was that knowing who you are, knowing your values, and knowing your non-negotiables is so much more important than anything else.
I agree with that.
That is something she should have figured out before she got married.
Correct. That's why she got a divorce. It's fundamental. You have to have that stuff before you get married. That's the whole key.
If you don't know who you are and what you want,
Yep.
and
Then
you
there's no
shouldn't-
way you can match that
Yeah,
with
let's-
someone else.
right.
'Cause you don't know who they are either.
No.
You have to have two people who know who they are and put those two things together, and then you can have a good, healthy marriage.
Exactly.
It'd be more important than the person that you love. And that was a huge lesson for me.
So do you think you didn't know yourself before getting married?
I think I didn't really know how important my values were to me before I got married.
Your values are everything. In
Yeah.
fact, this is the biggest mistake that people make. They think, I've got to find somebody that has common interests, the same things that I like. And that could not be farther from the truth. In fact, the fact that they like different things than you like are probably things that you're going to then realize, oh, I like that stuff too.
You need someone that has similar goals
Goals and
and
values.
values. Yep.
100%. That's what makes eHarmony better than all the other sites. Why? Because all the other sites, you look at beauty and looks, and goals and values is the last consideration, as opposed to eHarmony. And what a good matching website would be is they match you on goals only and then show you the pictures of the people that you would be a good match with. Now pick your favorite out of the looks.
So have you ever seen this show called Married at First Sight?
That's a thing.
Yes. But what they do
Oh,
is,
my goodness.
no, seriously. So
Well, do they match them on goals
they,
first?
they
and then,
match them on,
but then you don't even get to
values.
pick based on what they look like?
you don't see them until you're at the altar.
How many of them bail?
No, I mean, people go through with it.
What?
But then
Do
there's
they
a,
stick? There's a lot of
there's a
divorces.
few that
Yeah.
stick and a few of them that get divorced because they honestly, I don't know how honest they are when they're filling out this stuff because
Yeah.
they have to go through all these
Yeah.
different traits and who they are and like what their values are and their goals, and psychiatrists and different people match them together based off their values.
So that's
and-
all good.
Yeah.
Except if you don't know yourself
should be
well
a
enough to do
dating
the right
period, though.
right. And you still have to do some screening for physical attraction and
Yeah.
are you attracted? Because if that's not there, it's not going to work.
Right. I agree.
What is true love like, in your opinion?
When I find out, I'll let you know.
Why did it not work?
Okay, true love. What do you think about true love?
I believe in it.
Good.
I don't think it's like a fairy tale or Cinderella or, you
Right.
know, Enchanted where it's a
Right.
true love kiss.
Yeah.
Like, I don't believe in that, but I do think that, like, you can have somebody that you're so compatible with that it becomes like a true love. Like,
Well, I think that there is love that is true and there's love that is not true. Is
Right.
that
Yeah.
so? What would this not true love be? It would be infatuation, obsession, you thinking that they are
your
somebody
entire world.
right, and
Yeah.
and you thinking that they are somebody that they're not.
Right.
You've got your imagination of who they are, but it isn't really who they are.
Right.
As opposed to if you're really in love with someone, that's true love.
Right.
Is it not true? It's true.
I think true love also is you're loving someone despite all their flaws. Like, you
That's
can
true.
see through
Pun
see
intended.
through it, you know?
So the fairy tale type of true love is nonsense.
Right.
It just is, because what is that? Oh, I was in love with this person for my whole life and I just met them. No, you've retroactively extrapolated who you wish that they were.
Right.
And you're looking at things from a childish, foolish perspective. Love is very different when it's actual and real, like grown up, real person love. And too many people are chasing that fairy tale, which is why so many of them get divorced, because then when they're like, wait, you're supposed to be like this, like I imagined. And by the way, probably never even communicated. And how are they supposed to know? And you haven't even thought about this person from their perspective of what you're doing and what they're doing. And as soon as it doesn't match up, then you cry like a child and get all ridiculously emotional instead of thinking about it from a logical point of view and really understanding the reality of what it is that is there. True love is having that good, wise understanding of that reality.
Well, it's also, you know, there's different states, you know, that have different beliefs and different values or what they think of marriage. You know, there's some states that are very anti-marriage and there's states that are more for marriage. Like, I think Texas is a state that's really for marriage. Whereas you might go to New York or California and it's more anti, like people aren't getting married. They're staying single. You know, this was something that was brought up. We just had a marriage night at our church, and this was brought up about how many people are anti-marriage. And it's kind of sad because people are not finding the person they need to bond and connect with, because we weren't meant to be alone.
That's true.
I mean, we're just not. We're meant to be with somebody,
That's right.
and we're supposed to, you know.
We are social animals.
Right. And so, you know, I think as a society, we need to kind of wake up and realize, like, the true marriage, or what marriage is and what it's meant for.
It's a gift and a blessing.
It is.
And you can very much mess that up.
Right.
If you're not doing this right. And we're here to help guide and show you some good examples from two people. We're not married to each other, but she's got a good, healthy marriage, and I have a good, healthy marriage. And it's great. It really is.
You don't mind me asking.
Because I wanted to work so much that I was willing to overlook aspects of him and myself that didn't align with my true values. And I think that's why I didn't
You're
work.
so desperate for a relationship that you've got someone, oh, let's make it work, and you're so hopeful. It's like, are you paying attention to who they are and who you are? It's not right. It's not going to work. You can try and make it work, but is it going to work?
Right.
And
I think there's so many girls out there, they just want to get married.
And they'll
then
sell out the
to
long
the
term
first
for the short
person
term.
that's willing to
Yep.
put that ring on their finger.
Yep.
But it shouldn't be like that. Don't
No.
worry about being in your 20s or your 30s.
It's a
Like,
self-esteem issue. You're
Yeah.
too insecure, and so that's what you think is going to make you whole. If you are not a whole WHOLE person, and you try to come together with someone else, and you're just a part of a person and they're part of a person, well, all that is lacking multiplies against each other.
Right.
And that's it's like 0.5 plus 0.5 does not equal 1. It equals like -1.
Right.
It's not good, and or -2. It's just not going to work. You have to have security, and you have to have self-esteem in order to have love, a real love, a true love. It's a pyramid. The base of the pyramid, which is wider, that the top is built upon, and which makes it stable, is security. Next is self-esteem, and then the top of the pyramid is love. If you build that differently, if you're like, oh, I will fall in love, therefore I will feel good about myself, and after I feel good about myself, then I'll build some security and start working on financial stuff, it's not going to work. It's going to crumble down, because as soon as anything with any lack of security, that's going to damage the love. It's like running from a tiger. If you're running from a tiger, it doesn't matter who you're in love with. And it doesn't matter how good you feel about yourself.
Right.
As long as you love yourself enough to not die by suicide to tiger.
Right.
Run from the tiger.
Right.
But as long as you have enough self-esteem to run away from the tiger, the security is what's first. So you get into the safety of the cave, and now the tigers, can't get in, and you're safe. You get in the cave, what's the first thing you feel? Great. Because you got away from the tiger, because you're secure.
Right.
Now that starts to build your self-esteem. You feel good about yourself. Then you start looking around the cave of like, who can you sleep with tonight? Like, who are you in love with? Here's your family, right? Love. It's a pyramid. Security, then self-esteem, then love. It's the hierarchy of needs is what it is, and it's critical. You can't get around it. You can lie to yourself. You can make things up and think that you can get around that, but you're never going to. And at some point in time, your house of cards will crumble. And it's like you ever seen a pyramid built like this?
Right.
It's not going to stand.
No.
It's going to fall over at one point and then likely crumble apart.
Right.
Security first. So,
well, we always talk about in relationships that you need to have, you line up with your values and, all these different things. But I think what people need to know is what steps should you be taking in a dating relationship, and what questions should you be asking in that dating relationship? Because I don't know how many people actually have the serious sit-down conversations. Do you,
right.
When you're dating someone and you're starting to get serious with them, have you talked about finances?
Yep.
Like how you manage your finances? How do they manage their finances? If y'all were to get married, how you would manage finances together?
Yep. I guarantee you, everybody that's listening to this, if you're afraid to talk about money with the person you're about to marry, you are not ready to get married.
Right.
If you cannot talk about everything about finances and they tell you everything about their finances, what they have, what their desires are to have, what their plan is on how to get there, how they plan to handle money with you. If you haven't had that conversation, you are not ready to get married. Do not. Because when do you want to find out that you don't agree about money? Before you get married or after you get married? Because I don't care how great. I don't care if you think that they are the queen of the world or the king of the world. Think of your favorite celebrity, whatever, your ultimate Prince Charming and Snow White that are out there for you. If you have problems and disagreements about handling money with each other, your marriage will be a nightmare, and there's nothing that you're going to be able to do about it unless you fix the money problem. And then, because we see this a lot, and then we have to send them to Financial Peace University by Dave Ramsey and say, follow that, do that, no matter what.
Well, when you have the conversation, even if you two are in a different mindset, doesn't mean that you can't have a conversation that you both can come to as a compromise.
That's right.
If you can't come to a compromise, then that should show you that that person's probably not the best match for you.
That's right.
Because then if you can't compromise about financial stuff, when you have children, you're not going to compromise when it comes to parenting and all other things that come into play. I mean, religion, those are very important. You can't put, someone over here that doesn't believe to someone that does and think that the person that believes is going to convert the non-believer, because the non-believer is going to be sitting over here saying, I'm going to convert the believer to a non-believer.
Every time.
And it's just going to, it's like,
doesn't work.
It's mixing oil and water. It doesn't come together.
Right.
So
it doesn't matter how attracted you are to that person either, at all.
No.
It's not going to work. And So many people.
And you
person after
rather
person.
deal with the pain for the short period of time versus the long pain that you're going to experience down the road. Because if you can't mold together like you're supposed to when you get married, because you're supposed to come to one as one, if you cannot do that, the divorce is going to be really bad for you.
Yep. It's not even that you're going to get divorced. You're going to have a really hard time with that divorce because there's going to be nothing but friction. And it's the type of person that actually would have a very good and healthy divorce and handle that the right way is actually the type of person that's far less likely to get divorced because they're probably handling everything in a pretty reasonable and rational and appropriate way during the marriage.
Right. So make sure you're asking those questions. Make sure you can sit down with that person. Because if you can't and you're scared to or you're afraid to bring up the hard questions, then you need to really consider your relationship and really just determine if that's the right one for you.
You're not wise enough to enter into a marriage. If that's where you're at and you can't have that conversation, then it's a self-esteem problem too. Big time.
Yeah.
Because if you have any difficulty talking about any particular subject, then you can seek out help on how to have that conversation.
Right.
And a lot of times it's fear-based. It's like, if we talk about money, then we might break up. Okay. I'd like to know that right now.
You have to take that chance, though.
I would like to know that immediately.
Because you don't want to enter a marriage. Just for example, person A has $50,000 in debt and person B doesn't have any. And person A is too scared to tell person B how much debt they have.
Yep.
Then they get married. And all of a sudden, person B finds out how much debt you have and that you didn't disclose that with them. And guess what happens? It's
big problem.
Big problem. It's
one of the number one things that breaks the most important thing, which is trust. And they couldn't trust you because you hid this from them. And also, when that happens, if one of them is good financially and the other one's not, and they have not had a discussion about that before they're in the boat together, and you find out in the boat, then the one that is good with the money becomes the parent.
Right.
And the other one becomes the child. And that's a miserable situation for everybody to be in. And I'm not saying, look, if you got $50,000 or however much amount of debt, and you're wanting to get married and you've got a good relationship, you need to just be straightforward with them. And then you can team up together on how the debt is going to be tackled. And by the way, they're going to be testing you and seeing how disciplined that you are. Because if you are in debt, it is a problem. And you have a maturity problem about that if you're in debt. You should not be in debt. Don't go into debt. The borrower is slave to the lender. Don't sell yourself into slavery. Every time that you borrow anything, you have just made yourself a slave to the person that loaned you the money or whatever it is. Don't do that. You are requiring your future self to do something because of whatever reason that your present or past self decided. And your present self, when you're doing it right now, your present self, that becomes in the past, your past so fast. It's not that satisfying. And it's not such a benefit to your present self that it makes it in any way worth it to your future self because it's just a negative downhill spiral. And don't do it. It feels so great to have no debt ever. You're actually free. You can figure out what it is that you want to do with your life. It's great. Don't go into debt. And we're going to talk about a lot of these things, about finances, about relationships, because finances, in order for you to have a good relationship, your finances are critically important. Please subscribe, and if you like this content, give us a like, and we'll see you in the next episode. This is the Lawyer Dana Show.